I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, for
Big
so
time.
many reasons, I'm excited to have you on Conscious Conversations. I think, first of all, you were actually like one of the first people I told about not only Conscious Concierge, but Conscious Conversations before it was even like formulated. And you barely knew me at the time. Obviously, we were introduced through my boyfriend. And you were such a supporter, like such a champion for me doing this. And that really meant the world to me,
Oh,
especially given with all that you've done.
I believe in it. I mean, it's like I just think, you were meant to do this and just your life experience and all the healing that you've chosen to lean into. And yeah, I feel like you're like a doula for people in a way where like you kind of guide them in various paths that they could take, but
Mhm.
ultimately they choose it. But, I think the space in which you're in and I'm in, like, we've got to vet these things,
Yeah,
like not everything is for everyone and not everything is of the caliber that I think it should be. And so like you are that um
I like
vetting
the doula.
source, like it's so important. So yeah, I fully believe in what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, I like the doula reference. I'm going to use that.
Uh-huh.
And I think the other reason I'm happy to have you on is also, Conscious Conversations from the jump was intended to be a space for people really to explore and discover their truth and their own path when it comes to health, when it comes to wellness, when it comes to spirituality. And so I was like, who better to have than first Krista, then you, like the literal OGs of doing that, because that's how I see you guys, sort of like this
Hmm.
place you come to find your truth in this space. So I was like, these are like the OGs coming on. So I'm honored. This is like I told Krista, like this is my Super Bowl to have you guys. It's like introducing. I'm like, this is my Oprah.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. That means a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Well, for anyone listening who doesn't know who you are, well, they must live under a rock. But if they don't, Lindsey is one of the voices behind Almost 30, which is a top wellness and spirituality podcast in the world. She's created programs, communities, retreats all over the world, and now becoming a new mom inspired her latest creation, New Mom on the Block, which is a 360 support system for new moms. So I love to start my episodes with telling my guests what I love about them, just like on a personal note. Like, of course, the accolades are great, what someone's achieved, but just on a really personal level, like what I admire. So, what I admire about you is your authenticity and your depth. I think that you're really so relatable because I feel like you really do say things that people are thinking, but not necessarily saying out loud in your content and on your podcast. And I think, whether we're talking about relationships or the woes of entrepreneurship, when I'm talking with you, you're always here for it with wisdom, with humor, which is so nice, and just like a very grounded big sister energy that I love. And I'm just so honored and grateful to have you
Thank you. I receive that, all of that. I'm in receiving mode.
here. I love that.
Thank
Yeah, it
you.
must be nice for someone else to ask the questions, right?
It is
Side.
nice.
I'm like,
It
just
really
buckle up.
is.
I got it.
But be careful. I have that part of me that will probably ask you some questions. So,
Krista did that to me too, which I
yeah,
actually really liked, and I wasn't prepared because no one really does it because I'm usually interviewing people that aren't podcast.
totally.
Yeah. Um, this is a good topic for me to also answer questions on. The topic that I really wanted to talk to you about, which I told you earlier, is identity and especially how it shifts during life's big transitions and really how challenging that can be, how beautiful that can be. And of course, I want to talk about your new book. Let's start with the book. Yeah. I remember being at your house about a year ago, I think, when you were, I think, just writing it.
Yeah,
So, yeah, that's so crazy. It's been a year.
it's
Um,
crazy.
okay, tell us a little bit about it. What inspired you and Krista to write it?
Yeah, Krista and I have always known that we've had a book on our hearts, but just didn't know when it would happen. I think one of the headline messages from this book that I would love for people to take away is trust the timing of your life. You are right on time. And we really did trust that in this process. And so we knew that, from our own experiences, from the over 800 guests we've had on the podcast, from all the research that we've done, that we really had the authority to write a book to support people through this late 20s portal into your 30s that is so intense, and we'll talk about it, but also, more generally through seasons of change. I think this is going to be an incredible guide for people and an incredible remembering, really, um, because it's not about just prescribing all of these things for people to do and believe, but it's really about reminding you of what you already know and what you have within you. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, uh, the book we hope will live well beyond us. It's a legacy piece. It's hopefully going to be something that the incoming class of almost 30 years, pick up and just feel more confident and feel more empowered and feel like they are actually an active participant in their life rather than just feeling like, ugh, the next thing is happening to me. I just got to get through it. It's like,
Yeah.
when we are moving through these intense periods of change, change wants to work with you. It's working on you, and it's a precise alchemy to bring you to the next level of your life, to deepen your connection to your life and to the people in it. So it's really profound. I take it very seriously. And I'm just so happy that, the right people came into our life to be able to write this book, our agent, our publisher. Um, it all happened very easily. It flowed.
Mhm.
And I'm just so excited for people to have it in their hands.
Yeah, I can't wait to read it. Christian pre-ordered me the book, obviously.
Yay.
Yeah, and I love that you guys chose to write about this topic because I remember how disorienting my Saturn return was. It was like
Mhm.
a complete death and rebirth.
Yeah.
And but also you said something to me on the voice note that we were talking earlier today, that these transitions and identity themes come up again and again throughout life, but the Saturn return is really what lays the foundation for these reflections.
Mhm.
And that is so true.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely sets the tone,
Mhm.
So should we talk about our Saturn return just so
Sure.
people can, for people that don't know, let's just get clear on it because
Yeah.
not everyone's into astrology, but
Yeah.
this is basically an astrological event that everyone goes through. So the planet Saturn, every 29 and a half years, comes back to the same place it was in the sky when you were born. And why this is significant is because the planet Saturn is kind of like your cosmic dad, a bit of a taskmaster, comes with a lot of love, but kind of like that tough love.
Mm-hmm.
And the planet will come in and basically hit different aspects of your life or your chart and, kind of rock it. It'll say, hey, you know, now is the time to do better in areas of your life where you feel unaligned.
Yeah.
And we've all felt this, when the relationship you've been in for the last few years, just all of a sudden you're like, yeah, it hasn't been great for a while. And I think this is kind of the turning point where I need to make a decision.
Yeah.
Or I've always been in the town that I grew up in. Like, I think it's time to make a big move. Or I think I want to quit my job and start my own business. Like, there are all of these rumblings that might be happening within you. And it's scary, It means that you have to question everything that you've known. It means that, ultimately you're going to have to make some hard decisions that might rock some relationships in your life and rock the way people view you. But really, your Saturn return is meant to transform you for your greatest and highest good.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'll bring in a little neuroscience to ground us. At the same time, around like 26 or so, your prefrontal cortex is coming online. This is the area of the brain where, you are making decisions from you. This is where you long-term plan. It's where you emotionally regulate. Up until this point, your limbic brain, your limbic system has been kind of running the show, and that's the emotional part of your brain. So if you think back to your early 20s, maybe teens, and you were making very impulsive decisions, kind of riding your emotions with everything you did, it's completely normal that that's what was happening. And now in your late 20s, those two areas of the brain are syncing up and you're becoming more conscious and you're becoming more thoughtful and responsive rather than reactive in your life. So knowing this, knowing like the astrological transit and understanding the neuroscience behind this time in your life, it all begins to make a lot of sense and becomes a bit more manageable, if you will, because we understand that there are actually rumblings of change happening for a reason.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's really calling you to get in right relationship with yourself,
Yeah.
build that connection and that trust with yourself, your center, your soul, so that everything else can fall into its right place. Because
Yeah.
if you don't have a connection with yourself, um, it affects everything. You don't really have that compass. So it's incredibly important. And, we feel very strongly about telling people that this is happening because oftentimes in your late 20s, you feel like your life's falling apart and you're very hard on yourself about it. And this is
Yeah.
when a lot of people slip into depression and just have like a mental instability that um, I think is normal based on the intensity of it. And if you knew it was happening for a greater purpose,
Yeah.
maybe you would navigate it differently.
Totally. Totally. I think you're doing God's work by doing that. Like it was very disorienting for me. I remember feeling like I was really losing my mind and it was really scary.
Yeah.
So I think this is amazing that you guys put this out there.
Thank you.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about yours a little bit and like what
My
you want
Saturn
to?
return.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about yours too. I would say that so if we want to get really deep into the astrology for a moment, I have Saturn in Sagittarius in my second house.
Mm,
And you can find this out for yourself by I love the passages app. It's really easy. You just go to your chart, your planets, and then go to Saturn, and you'll get a pretty good breakdown. But it was hitting, relationships in my life. It was hitting my wealth and abundance, my relationship to money.
mm,
Um, it was hitting my family system and relationship to my family and my future family. So it was quite intense. And
mhm,
around that time, I was in the wake of a pretty big breakup. I was with someone who I thought would be my person forever.
mhm,
And I just felt that rumbling within me of like, I don't know if this is it, and I thought it was it. Like, this is so confusing. This is so heartbreaking. And instead of having a rational, mature conversation with him, I ended up cheating on him
mhm,
and just not only betrayed someone I loved, but betrayed myself.
mhm,
And it was such a, it was indicating to me that, my whole soul had been speaking to me for a while and I just ignored it, and then acted out. And, in the wake of that breakup, I was thrust into this period unknowingly of being single for quite a long time. I was single for about 7 years. I
mhm,
was dating, but like nothing serious. I was chasing after the wrong guys. I was settling for less than stellar behavior. I was, yeah, just really struggling with my self worth and dating and really desperately wanting someone to choose me. And I would
mhm,
do almost anything so that they would deem me like choosable.
mhm,
And then there was one night where I was like home on a Friday night and I was hoping that someone was going to text me to ask me to go out, whether it was a situationship or friends, and they didn't. And I had
mm,
made myself dinner and I was just kind of having a night to myself and I was just really like sad, and I was on the floor of my living room and just like crying and just so like sick of like waiting for someone to choose me and so sick of
mhm.
like not feeling seen and valued and honored in these dating situations.
Yeah.
And so I vowed to date myself. I was like, okay, this is going to be about coming back home to myself, about understanding and knowing myself without another person, like being in a relationship. And it was the most one of the most sacred times of my life, and I wouldn't be in the relationship that I'm in today, if it wasn't for that period of my life. And um, it was hard work. Did a lot of therapy. I committed to going on my solo trips. I committed to all of the deep healing. I was just very, very, very committed.
Mm,
Um, and also at that time, I was just dealing and struggling with like my money. That's another aspect of my chart that was hit.
mm,
And I just couldn't hold on to it. I was like struggling to pay my bills. Um, I just didn't know how to manage or respect my money. I was never taught that, and I was resentful for that. And even though I was making money, it just like fell through my hands. Um, so it was hard. It was really, really hard. And I kind of had to work on that mindset around money, the energetics of money. Um, and then finally within my other relationships, I feel like that was a period of time where I really individuated from my family. Um,
yeah.
we're so close now, and I really think I needed that period of time to understand who I really was and to kind of detangle what about my upbringing and my relationship with my parents and their relationship, et cetera, that made me who I am today. And what are the aspects of me that I would love to nurture and heal so that I could be even better for myself and for others. So that was, it was profound, but it didn't come without a lot of just hardship and challenge and heartbreak. But it was worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
It's
about you? What was yours like?
I mean, it's I've told it probably a lot at this point because it's actually why concierge exists. What happened during my Saturn return was I was living and working in New York in television and like party girl. That was kind of my identity at that point, which I know we'll touch on in a little bit, the identity
Mm-hmm.
piece. But I was dating someone I thought I was going to end up with. I was, close to 30 and COVID happened, and also my ex was relapsing. He was an addict, and so it was really intense. And I really had like a mental breakdown over it. I would call it. I just so much came up for me. I had been in therapy since I was 6 years old, on and off, but there was something about this that just unlocked like a whole portal within.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
just intense. And, I left the country and I went abroad to Colombia where I am. And we broke up and I thought my life was over at 30. And it was the beginning of a really deep journey for me, especially spiritually. It came out here and started working with plant medicine and with, breath work and meditation and everything. And, the options at that time were pharmaceuticals and therapy. And so I explored that. And my intuition told me there's other ways and there's something else here for me. Which is when I found ayahuasca and went on that journey. And so just then the roof was blown over my head of what I thought life was and is and who I was and is. And yeah, it was really the catalyst for this. I'm still dealing with transitions and still dealing with identity now, but I would say exactly what you said laid the groundwork for me to better navigate these moments where, like, even now I feel like I'm in a deep process of like death and rebirth, but I remember and I have the understanding of what's happening. So when it starts to feel scary of things crumbling and things like almost like feeling like I want to grasp something familiar and it's gone, I like
Yes.
tune in and I'm like, I remember the process.
Mm-hmm.
So
Totally.
I think this book is just really so important because of that foundation, so that when people do go through it, because it's not like after the Saturn return it's over. And I think that's really important to touch on, right? Like the transitions and the identity shifts and pieces that we move through with our identities. It's just that now we have this framework of what identity shift and transitions can feel and look like.
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think, we're all meant to change. I think we forget that like we are primed for change as human beings.
Yeah.
Um, but we become so afraid of it. And I think that's the mind. The mind is like No. I
Yeah,
want the same. I want predictable. I want stable. And that's, I get it. And
yeah,
also, we're made for this, and
yeah,
so how are we robbing ourselves of a more full, fulfilling life by not leaning into change?
yeah. What does it feel like for you when you're in the midst of that transformation? Because I know for some people it's hard to identify what's actually going on when we're in the in between
Yeah.
versions of ourselves, but what does it feel like for you when you're in that process?
It depends, like I think I'm at a place now where I have my tools, I have a good relationship with my soul and my body, where like we're kind of all in communication,
Mm,
so my body will give me messages, my soul will give me whispers,
mhm,
and we're able to navigate change in a much more measured way and a much more curious way than I would have maybe in my mid to early 20s, which would have been very much fear centric
mhm.
and nervous system activated and feeling like it was happening to me rather than for me.
Yeah.
So it feels a lot more exciting to me now because I have proof that moving through change with curiosity, with the willingness to really lean in and trust makes my life better.
Yeah.
So even if I don't know what is 5 feet in front of me, I'm more apt than ever to just lean in. And I kind of feel like I'm in a season of that now where, we have the book coming out. Almost 30 has just been an incredible ride. And while Almost 30 will continue to live on, I do have other things inside of me that want to be created. And I know some of those things and I don't know other
Mm,
of those things. So I'm just kind of in this like, do I burn it all down and just lean into motherhood?
yeah.
Do I really double down on something I want to create right now? Or is it just not the time? I have so many questions. And so I'm
Yeah.
just kind of like living these questions and not trying to force an answer
Mhm, mhm.
and being okay that I'm in a process and that it might take time and then I don't need to have a decision made by June 1. It's like important for me to like respect the timing of my life because it's really not on my timing. It's divine. It's like what I deem right timing pales in comparison to what God deems the best timing. So I'm just kind of like I'd rather surrender in that respect and let God, let spirit, let my soul lead rather than try to manhandle it.
Yeah. I love that. And I think, yeah, it's so hard for so many of us that are just like going through this process, but motherhood is something that's like very top of mind for me.
Mhm.
I'm turning 35 on Saturday. And
Woohoo!
yeah, and I feel like I was really craving wanting to talk to a mother about this transition and about identity around it
Yeah.
because I see a lot of my friends going through it. And I have always really struggled to go to the next thing. Since I was a young girl, my mom said, like, you always wanted to go backwards. You really struggled to go forward. So I'm
Mm.
really feeling like this tension of like, it's time, it's here. We're preparing. But at the same time, I also really do want to be preparing for that moment, for my body,
Mhm.
for my mind. Um, how did becoming a mother shift how you see yourself or your identity altogether? I know it's a loaded question, but
Yeah. I mean, it changed almost everything, and I became more of myself than ever. So it
mm,
was really interesting. Like it completely changed my life, but I just felt more at home than I ever have been in my life. And that was interesting for me,
mm,
because as someone who is public facing, motherhood isn't something that what do I want to say? It's like motherhood isn't something that like would get me the likes in the same way that my other
Mhm.
content would, like
S-
being a present mother and just being in that part of my life and not needing to share about it or whatever, and just like truly being so present and learning my children and just learning how I can just be, the parent that they chose, which is like just being yourself. Like I'm interested in that. I want that. Like I desire that so deeply. And so that kind of pulled me away from my former desires of like wanting to be famous and,
Mhm.
getting all the likes and all these things. And so I think that part of the identity shift was like a mini death, kind
Mhm.
of letting go a little bit of this former dream. And really it became this expired dream that was kind of hanging around.
Yeah.
Um, and listen, this desire to be known or make an impact will probably manifest in various ways throughout my life. But at the forefront for me will be being a mom and a wife and creating a family and a nurturing home. Like that's like my greatest purpose thus far. And so everything else hopefully will kind of shape around that is like my intention.
Yeah.
Um but it's just such a funny thing where like the world in which we live in, like there's just this validation factor.
Yeah.
And so motherhood is just a very different type of validation. I think it's the greatest validation when you can look into your child's eyes and just feel like, "Oh my god, this is heaven. I
Mhm.
created you, you chose me, here we are." Like it's the greatest thing ever. And
Yeah.
it's just different than what I'm used to.
Yeah, I think you bring up such a good point about two things. One, Kristen and I were at dinner the other night, and I was actually saying something to her that a friend said to me who's a mother. I was like talking about something like with my appearance, like my teeth, or like something like I'm not getting Botox. And I was like, and my friend looked at me and she's like, it's so funny. I forgot I even have teeth. Like I literally forgot. She was like looking at me with 10 heads. And I said to Krista, like, it seems like there's some kind of freedom in not being so focused on yourself. And I'm
Yeah.
kind of looking forward to that, to be honest.
Yeah. I've been talking about that so much because it's like the most liberating thing in the world.
Yeah.
You, me, Krista, all you girlies out there who are so deep in the wellness space, the self-development journey, like the spiritual path, like with love and respect, I say that we are very self-focused.
Yes.
We can be making impact, we can be doing all the things, but like we're self-focused.
Yes.
Um, and I didn't realize that until I had a child, and all of a sudden, another human being, literally their life is sustained by you.
Yeah.
And my 2-hour morning routine
Yeah.
is has disappeared. I'm not doing my meditation or my red light as much as I want to be doing. I'm not doing the chanting and the mantra, like all this stuff. Like it
Yes.
just poof disappears. And and also looking in the mirror disappears. And then all of a sudden you're just like, oh, some of that was kind of like a placeholder
Yeah.
for really experiencing the best parts of life. And not to say that those things aren't beneficial and aren't good. And I don't incorporate some of those things. I do. And like my spiritual practice now is in the morning entering into my son's world and just playing with him, not criticizing him, not asking him to do anything, just like being in his world and
Yeah.
like being a kid with him. And that is the spiritual practice for the day. So yeah, it's just I think it's the best. I think we need those times in our life where we just take the focus off of ourselves
Yeah.
Because it can get like really funky and distorted and kind of obsessive.
Yes.
Um, and I think children do that. Now,
Yeah.
mind you, it'll be the hardest thing you ever do, but it is like the good hard, it's that challenge that you're like, "Oh my god, this feels good." It's like it's
Yeah.
hard, but I know that one, this is worth it. I know this is shaping me and just helping me to grow. And I know that it's benefiting my child and my family.
Yeah. My mom talks about that a lot of like this obsession that we all have in this wellness holistic space of like ourselves.
Yeah,
And I definitely detach from the identity of being someone in health and wellness and spirituality because it can really, yeah, just take a hold for sure.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And the other point you bring up is like so on my mind right now about when you talk about like this topic of motherhood isn't necessarily what gets me the likes. It's like when I stepped out of party girl identity and like look at my life and how bougie and like cool I am and I'm at the best restaurant, the best places with celebrity, whatever it was, that identity and switched into like conscious concierge and talking about anxiety and depression. It's like I noticed that the likes I would get on my fire fits that I was posting with my abs, all out on the internet, like thong
Mhm.
bikini, they just wasn't the same. And I still sometimes see friends that are, going viral or getting all the attention for those kinds of posts. And there's something that it triggers in me where I'm like, yeah, well, now I'm the anxiety and depression girl. Great. Like,
Mm,
but coming back to the identity piece, the work that I've been doing a lot is like, I am not, my identity is not conscious concierge. The party girl in me that was like a good time Sally, she still lives within me, like she's here with
yeah,
me. And I think that really helps me like detaching from the identity. And I'm sure that's so hard in motherhood because you're probably like, okay, I'm a mom now. That's
yeah.
not anything I was before because it's like, I'm sure, a death and a rebirth.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think my true opinion and like what I think is the key to this identity conversation is not over identifying with anything
Totally.
for
Well, I
so
think we yeah, I think our human wants to identify so badly, like, tell me who and what I am.
yes.
Like, because to be, like a soul on earth would be too nebulous and undefinable, I think, for people. And then what do we do with that? And then how do we fit into society, But
Yeah.
I love the idea of, you said now I'm the anxiety and depression girl.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, but also, you know, you're going to be called to evolve again and
Yeah.
again and again and again. And we get to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's happening more often now where like people are really allowing themselves to evolve. And we're seeing people have many different types of careers throughout their life and purposes and just in different types of lifestyles and beliefs. And the
Yeah.
ability to like change that and just allow for that transformation to happen is so cool to see. Whether I like agree with what they're doing or saying or thinking or not doesn't matter. Like we want to see that. We want to see that like people are so in touch with themselves and their life that they allow the current of change to to change them and move through them. Um I just think it makes life so much more full and interesting, and I honestly think it would benefit our relationships too, to really see that in other people, to honor it in ourselves, and have that be something that really is like the deepening within our relationships. Because I think within relationships, especially when identities shift, we get like, who are you now? You've
Yeah.
changed. What's
Mhm.
happening? What does this say about me? So yeah, I hope that that continues to be something that's really encouraged and supported, because I think it's so important for like humanity at large, which sounds dramatic, but it's true.
No, it's so true. And I mean, you bring up a great point about because I can go so deep on the spiritual rabbit hole, but to touch on it a little bit, the reality of why we create these identities is because it is too big for us to really understand, like, we are a soul having a human
Yeah.
experience. Like the vastness of that, that's really what I have seen a lot with my ayahuasca journeys, and why it was like a little destabilizing for me to come back,
Yeah.
because I was like, wait, what are we doing here? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
And that for me was when I started seeing, like, oh, I'm trying to grasp onto things and I'm trying to create identity because it makes me feel like I can grab something. And lately I've been going through, like, definitely a death rebirth portal. And it's like, yeah, just trying to grab onto something familiar. And in reality, it's sort of, for me, going into like the transition, understanding like there's something waiting for me on the other side. I'm not really exactly sure what it is, but
Yeah.
just gonna, like, I just literally at night, I'm like, okay, I surrender. And I'm just like dying to be
Yeah.
reborn right now. That's all I can say
Yeah.
to myself.
Yeah. I know. I know. And it's a process. And sometimes the process isn't as fast as we want it to be and isn't as smooth. But I think what you're saying is so important. Just that, like, the surrender piece
Yeah.
is hard, is easier said than done, but so important.
Yeah. And for motherhood, I think I view it as like the ultimate death and rebirth, and like the ultimate act of surrender. And I definitely, want to prepare for that. And I guess a question I would ask is, like, what is one thing that you wish you would have been better prepared for the motherhood transition, that we can start to implement it or prepare for it now, those of us who are not mothers yet?
Hmm. I think the first thing that comes to mind is just be prepared for how important having your inner mom circle is. Other
Mm,
mothers are just incredibly important to have, as a sounding board, as a shoulder to lean or cry on, as one of the places that you're going to raise your children, and it's like that village that everyone talks about. Like, be prepared that that is going to be something that will want to come in. And just from my experience, I was like tired, I was disoriented, I was like so excited to be in my own little bubble, and I didn't really think that making new friends was on my agenda,
mm,
but making new mom friends and reconnecting with friends that had become moms has been like the greatest thing ever. Because there is like there is something in the brain that's happening when you are with other people who are experiencing what you're experiencing or
mm,
similar to. There's a comfort, there's a safety, and there is just, I feel like it affects my nervous system.
yeah.
And I'm able to show up as the best mom that I can show up as. So be prepared that your village is going to want to form, and absolutely allow it to, and lean into it and pour into it when you can.
Yeah.
Um, Secondly, I think, the body is a conversation that I know a lot of women out there are having internally and with their community or friends, and we write it about it in the book. But your body will change. And I had a conversation with my therapist before I had Mav. I was like early on in the pregnancy, and I was just having all of these thoughts and feelings about my body changing. And it is disorienting, especially that first trimester before you start to actually show, like, your body's changing and it's uncomfortable and you look kind of chubby and you're like, what the actual? Um, but she said something to me that has always stuck with me, and she's like, what if your body is never the same? And I was like,
I remember the podcast you said that.
yeah, like,
Hmm.
okay, I guess, you know, that's okay. Like, I had to kind of like chew on that because I was like,
Hmm.
I would like the body that I had to come back. But she's like, no, literally, like, your body will never be the same. you are different after you have a child. It's not just about how you look. Sure, you could do the workout plan and the diet and get back the quote body that you'd like. Sure, fine, if that's your journey. But like you will never be the same. So why would you want to go back
Hmm.
if like you're no longer that person? What if your body wants to take you on a whole new journey?
Mm,
What if your body wants to soften literally and figuratively? What if your body wants to, explore new ways of eating and nourishing yourself and moving the body? Like, don't become so obsessed with getting back your old body that you miss the messages from your body that say, I actually want to try something different. And I actually want to work together because how you view and treat me isn't quite aligned anymore. So we're going to work on that. So I've just had that experience with my body where
mm,
first of all after giving birth, like, I will never disrespect my body again. Truly, madly. Like, it's just insane how your body knows exactly what to do. It's insane that your body grew a human being and then birthed it. And yeah, I'm just like so proud of my body. So I'm just so much nicer. I'm so much more forgiving and I really listen to it a lot more. And so while I know your appearance will change and that will be hard to metabolize and digest, what I do know is that like your body really wants to be on a new, more profound, deep journey with you after
mm.
you have a child. And you just have to be willing to say yes. And you don't have to love your body every day, but you can listen to it and you can accept it.
I've sent that episode that you did. I remember listening to it to friends that are having kids, and they were like, that part about
Yeah.
like not going back because that body is gone and that version of you is gone. And I think that's
Yeah.
huge. I feel like one thing my friends are navigating on the subject of doulas, really like, am I a home birth mom? Am I a hospital birth mom? Am I a vaccine mom? And it's like that
Yeah.
part too of like, then it's like, these decisions aren't just for you, it's for your child. And I really
Yes.
see how much people go through with deciding that the pressure of like doing things natural or not doing things natural and
Yes,
too
it's
much a
so
lot.
much. I
Yeah.
mean, I still deal with it because there are just always going to be decisions that need to be made around, the health and well-being of your child. Um, without, I think everyone has a very unique child in front of them. So
Yeah.
nothing that I say is prescriptive. And I've had to learn that myself,
Hmm.
where I really have to tune into my child.
Yeah.
Um, but it's hard, like I've had plans, I've had the birth plan. I had, an idea of how I would be as a mother and how I would feed my child and how I would approach this and that. And a lot of that I've stuck to, and I'm very proud.
Yeah.
And there have been some things that I've just loosened my grip on
Yeah.
and been a little bit more like, well, okay. So, if he has pizza and cupcakes at the party, it's all good, and like just taking it moment by moment. And I think the big thing is that if I am bringing stress to a situation around my child, that is more harmful than the processed cheese.
Yeah.
You know,
1000.
it's like it
Yeah.
has a bigger ripple effect than the dyes in the cupcake ice cream or icing. I'm just like, it's not worth me trying to control everything. I will control what I can. I will do all the things. Trust me, I will. And I will
Yeah.
also just let go a little bit because that feels good, and we're navigating really interesting times. I'm sure a lot of moms listening to your podcast, are kind of watching what's happening with the health movement and the government and all the
Mm.
things. And
Yeah.
without getting political, because I don't really
Mm-hmm.
Politics are like so bizarre to me, but
Same.
I just I think we're living at a very important, interesting time, and I all I'm doing every day is just praying
Yeah.
because I'm like,
Same.
I can control what I can control, period. And I do think that mothers have a fire. Mothers have a fire that not only can change and advocate for their own family, but that truly can shift things in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing that.
Yeah.
We're seeing that in the food space and
Yeah.
having like,
Food based.
non-toxic this and that in schools and like it's happening.
Yeah.
So while I wouldn't want you to like put your life on hold to fight for something that would like totally take you away from your family, I do want to remind us, and this was a reminder for me too, that like if we feel really strongly about something from a place in our heart and knowing and our own research, then we should advocate for it
Yeah.
and not feel bad about that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And on the subject of like the processed cheese would be better for him than the stress. It's like I think we're seeing that. We're seeing the wellness community in general, myself included, swing back a little
Yeah.
because I didn't eat out at restaurants for a year. I mean, I was taking everything out of my body, all my beauty things, anything that I felt like could be toxic. And I feel like I got lost in the sauce. And it was
Yeah.
the worst I had ever felt was that year that I was the healthiest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's story for another day. But just to say, like,
Mhm.
I do feel as mothers, as humans, the that extremism can also really affect us. And we get to stand up for what we believe in. So finding the balance of that too
Yeah.
is a whole other podcast episode.
Yeah.
Um,
Truly. I'll be at that round table.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I wanted that's like something I really want to put together. Um, how do you, I asked Krista this too, how do you feel like you're able to still show up publicly and like hold space for others and, do what you're doing when you're navigating such massive transitions in your own life?
Yeah. Sometimes I don't want to,
Yeah.
if I'm being honest. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I just want to be in my process and I don't want to be as public. And I think that's okay, and I know that's okay. And I know people know that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think we should say that because there is this like weird pressure sometimes I feel, and I can imagine other people feel to like document your process and every step of it
Mhm.
for social media. And
Yes.
um I don't really subscribe to that, to be completely honest. Like I like to be processed and then share, and sometimes I won't even share. There are aspects of my experience in the last, handful of years that I really haven't shared and probably never will, and that's because I wanna hold certain things close. I wanna hold certain things between me and the people that I'm closest with, um, and I know I won't regret that.
Yeah.
To me, being so public with intimate things in my life feels leaky. There's lots of eyes, there's lots of projections, and
Yeah.
just energetically, it doesn't feel great. I also have people in my life that I want to respect and not like pull them into this public eye that they didn't really ask to be a part of.
Yeah.
But on the topic of how do I like still show up and hold space for people in the way that we do with almost
Yeah.
30 and with new mom on the block and stuff while going through seasons of change, I think I just vow to always show up as I am, who I am, and like where I'm at.
Yeah.
And it might be a little unprocessed and messy,
Mhm.
potentially. Um, but I'll always show up with like an open heart and, I'm a really good listener and I'm not here to tell you how to do things or how to live your life and or who you need to be. I think like the book, my intention is to allow you to express, to feel like yourself, and to remember who you really are outside of how people view you online, outside of your job, outside of how your parents view you, like who you really are. And so in every interaction, whether one-on-one or in big groups or events or what have you, my intention is always that. Um, and yeah, just not needing to be perfect in showing up for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. That's something I'm navigating a lot is like being so deep in my own process and still showing up and helping people. And yeah, I love that. And on the subject of your own shifts, like what's something you feel you're currently in the middle of that feels like messy or in process that's, you know, really prevalent for you?
I think for me, it feels like I'm walking up to this like precipice where, um, like I said earlier, the book is coming out. It is this big like moment of celebration that is wanting me to be so present for it and actually step into the pride and like just the receiving of like how important and incredible this is. And then like right beyond that, there's like this unknown where like I can't really see what's happening, but I'm like, curious. Like, and so my mind wants to figure out, okay, so what are we doing next?
Yeah.
Like, when are we going to have the second kid? And when are we
Mhm.
going to make the music? And when is New Mom on the Block YouTube coming back? And da 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 da.
Yeah.
And not to say that those things won't happen and I won't be intentional about it, but like the timing again is like it's happening in perfect timing. And so my job is to be so tuned in with myself and how I receive guidance and messages and energy and movement forward that I make my moves when I'm pulled. So,
Hmm.
yeah, there's that and then just the other feeling I have is just like what if what if I just took a break
Hmm.
and was like totally in my family life and being a mom and what would that look like and what would that feel like? I don't know
Yeah.
if I would miss working or the creativity. I kind of see it as like I would love that and I would still need to carve out time for my creativity, for myself. I would need that balance and really that fuel where like I think I would be a better mom if
Yeah.
I was giving myself time. But what I need to work through before that happens is just this thing that I've been working on for a while. And Sean's been kind of in this process with me of like, you know, what is my value if I'm not, what is my value in the home if I'm not participating financially as much as I want to and or as much as he is. And in theory, I know my value and I understand that, but it's like, do I embody that? It's like, do I truly believe it with every cell in my body? So that's what I'm working on because I think once that clicks, other things are going to click into place. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. That was
Mhm.
honest. Well, first of all, I resonate a lot with with some of those things. Just the
Mhm.
yeah, being in partnership and starting this and like, what does this mean? What is my value? I'm not bringing in what I used to. Like all the things.
Mhm.
Very challenging to navigate that, and I think a lot of mothers, especially, are when they step into leaving work or putting work on the back burner. Um, what would you say is one identity you've outgrown that you're just really proud of letting go?
I am really proud of the work that I've done on like the polite girl, the
Mm,
girl that everyone likes, the people pleaser. You
hmm.
know, uh, she'll always be a part of me, but I've just done so much to understand her and where she comes from and when she, kind of rears her head and wants to lead and just how I can bring her into the fold of my life rather than let her run it. Because she was doing so in relationships, I was my attachment style, she was kind of leading in that. I so desperately wanted to be like liked and I wanted things to be kosher and harmonious. And so I was anxiously attached to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, you know, I would have that avoidant attachment style because if I wasn't able to be seen as perfect and polite and the best and this and that, like I would just kind of not participate and just kind of
Mm-hmm.
distance myself and be kind of avoidant. So, yeah, I'm just so proud of that work. Um,
Love that.
yeah.
Cool. Well, my last question would be if the polite girl is like an out version of you that you outgrew and let go, what version of you do you feel is starting to emerge now?
Mhm. My north node is in Aries, and I
Mm,
just feel like the fire, the directness with
mm,
love, with passion, just kind of like trusting that those around me will be okay if I am myself, if I say what I feel,
mm-hmm,
if I live my truth and speak my truth, and trusting that that's for their greatest, highest good as well.
mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, just not being afraid to rock the boat a little bit for the sake of like just literally saying and doing and feeling what's true for me.
I love that. Amazing.
You're the best.
We hit every point I wanted to hit.
Oh, no way. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
So good. So good. I've been loving these conversations, with people who I know and people in the community because there's just like a flavor to them and like an intention with them that is so different than if it was just like, whatever. I don't know an example, but I just really appreciate your thoughtfulness around these questions and sharing also like your experience. I just think it brings like a really cool dimension to the conversation that helps people um like really identify the pieces of them that like are very much activated by the conversation in a good way.
Yeah, thank you for that. That means a lot coming from you. I know you interview so many people and in the space, and my approach has been, I think, from the beginning of just being like radically honest while also protecting some things that are like too much to share.
Yeah.
For me right now, this conversation was so prevalent because I'm really going through that process of like, on a scare again, very scary, very like, what's happening? Who am I
Mhm.
becoming? I don't really get it. Why does everything feel just so intense? And I think sharing that has been when I shifted from like, come to me for the modalities, I have all the people and all the things to like, I am literally going through it as well. And this is what it looks like to be a person who's actually in the work and
Mhm.
still of the work. And when I shifted to posting things like that about, anxiety and depression, I posted something yesterday about like the season of life where it loses its color, because that's what happens for me when I feel like it's so intense for periods of time. It feels like there's no more color in the world.
Yeah.
And I shared that. I shared it in a way that felt like safe enough for me to share without like,
Mhm.
and this happened. This is what I'm going through. It's just like I'm in the season where life has lost its color. And I've been in the season where it comes back. So if you're in that season,
Yeah.
let me walk with you in it. I'm here if you need
Mhm.
it. That's like my approach with this whole thing. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
like conventional or if it makes any sense, but it's just, I that's what I'm doing. I told Krista, I do see like you guys for me have been a really good model of who I'd like to be in the space, because I think your honesty you've given so much honesty and shared so much of
Mhm.
your life that that's why people see resonance in you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think just trust what feels good to share. It might not always feel easy, but I think you have a really good yeah, you're super self-aware and you're also very intuitive. So I don't think it doesn't seem like you share anything that like doesn't feel right to share. And I
Yeah.
do think that that's a important connection point for people. It gives a humanness to a brand or a platform or a service, that I think people are really craving,
I
really, really craving.
I do feel like people are craving that. And when I was at Krista's retreat, we talked about like there's this feeling I feel where everyone has a podcast. And so I'm just kind of like, oh, with concierge, I feel like it's so unique and it's my thing. But I feel like with the podcast, like everyone has one unless you're huge. It's like, and Krista was telling me like, I really love how you do the dual perspectives. Like the next episode I'm doing is going to be on Botox. And it's going to be someone who's an MD, who's an injector, who's, a really prominent doctor in New York, and someone who is not, a fan of Botox. And I'm going to facilitate a conversation that's going to be peaceful. It's going to bring
Hmm.
harmony and it's going to be a new way to like show different perspectives and not just like this,
Love
argument.
that.
Yeah. And I think, um, yeah, just the authentic conversation around
Yep.
Botox, which I mean, you're championing as well. And
So important.
so important. Yeah. So,
But yeah, I think, yeah, that conscious moderation, like those conversations of like two different sides, I think is so interesting. And yeah, and also trusting that like you don't need to be the biggest podcast in the world. And I know you know this, but like
yeah.
that it'll reach the people that it's meant to reach. And it's an extension of like your business, like that's really valuable. Even if you're not getting the numbers you want, like let that go. This is an extension of the business in the sense that people are going to find you through the pod and then they're going to find conscious concierge through that. Like, so yeah,
Yeah.
it's important.
I love that. Where can the people find you?
So our book is out June 3rd and you can find it anywhere books are sold like Barnes and Noble and Target and Amazon and smaller bookstores, local bookstores as well. And you can always ask your local bookstore for the book, which is so cool. And then you can find Almost 30 anywhere you listen to pods. We are there every single week. I'm Lindsey Simcik on Instagram. I am in my DMs. I would love to connect with you. And you can follow Almost 30 on Instagram, Almost 30 podcast.
Amazing. And
Yay.
all things health and wellness, spirituality to figure out what is next in your path, who is best for you to work with, who is legit, who is for you,
Not.
who is not, who is not. Um, yeah, there's just a lot going on these days in the space.
I
So,
know.
you know, please reach out to me at
Mhm.
yourconsciousconcierge.com or on Instagram at yourconsciousconcierge or on TikTok, Conscious Concierge.
Ooh, we
YouTube,
got the TikTok. Heck yeah.
YouTube too.
Ah.
Well, thank
Oh,
you
you're
so
the best.
much.